Well, let's begin. Good evening, everybody. We're on the new format now, so no talk in advance and just open questions and open workshop. Script, kid, relationships, Robert, Joel, books, tapes, my tapes. Anybody else that you've been reading? Anything at all is open for discussion tonight. It's sort of like a spiritual workshop in which we can talk about any aspect of our practice that we want to. So, jump in.
I was hoping I could get a 3-for-1. There are three processes that I listened to and tried to practice. And I asked about self-inquiry a couple of weeks ago. And also the breathing in and out of the I am. And I'm not sure what the third process is called. I think it sounded as if Robert said something. So it has something to do with surrendering, self-surrendering. And it seemed to go along with self-inquiry. And I was just hoping to hear more about those three, if that's okay.
Sure. Absolutely appropriate. They are the three practices that Robert talks about the most, and they're really for three different types of people, although also when we get bored with one, it's perfectly reasonable to switch to another one. His highest outed one is self-inquiry, which is the process of originally we start whenever we have something negative going on, like if we're feeling worried. The resolution for being worried is not to try to figure out the answer to the problem, because that's not going to work. Your mind will immediately be worried that you got the wrong answer and be worried that you've chosen the wrong side. If you decide to go A, your mind will worry about B. If you then agree and decide to go B, your mind will worry about A. So the answer is to rise above the question, and the ultimate solution to all that is to inquire who it is that's worried and begin to address the basic question of who or what is this personal entity, this I am awareness that we all have, that we have mistakenly identified with our body and our mind. And you can use self-inquiry on everything, even when you're at the point where you're trying to arrive at the state of a silent mind. You can inquire when a thought comes up, to whom do these thoughts come? And so self-inquiry is used to directly address the question of the personal I. And it's like laying the axe to the root of the tree, It's the purpose of it is to discover the fact that the idea that there is a personal I is hypnosis, is illusion, is conditioned. It's a conditioned belief that we have. Now, some people have difficulty sustaining self-inquiry because it often doesn't produce immediate results or noticeable results, and so some people get tired of doing self-inquiry. And Robert mentions lots of variations on the I meditation or the I am meditation. Sometimes he says just, when you inhale, say I, and when you exhale, say I. See, it's the same I. It's the I. To whom do these thoughts come? To whom does the spirit come? Who's depressed? Who's joyful? who is it? You can also keep focused on I during a meditation if you're not doing self-inquiry or you're bored with self-inquiry. And sometimes he says just breathe in and say I and exhale say I and just keep yourself focused on I. And this is really the process of following the I or attending to the I as part of the self-inquiry. Having asked to whom does this I come, you then follow the I or abide in the I, he says, and see where it leads you, and where it leads you is into the silence. But you can also just start directly without doing the self-inquiry and just start abiding in the I by keeping yourself focused on the I or I am. Sometimes he suggests breathing in with I and exhaling M. And sometimes it's breathe in saying, who am I? And before you exhale, say, I am not the body. And when you exhale, say, I am infinite consciousness, or I am God, or I am the absolute reality, or whatever word there is the one that feels right to you. The purpose is to keep yourself focused on I am. See, all we know for sure is this sense of I am. I am is true. For me right now, I am is true, and it's true for all of you. Now, the minute I say anything else, I've added a confusion. I am the body, or I am this, or I am that. Now, this is no longer necessarily true, but the I am is the unassailable fact that we have, that we can start with. It's the only place we can really start. So we can investigate what this I am is, and that is a sufficient practice to lead you to the understanding. And his third technique, surrender, is there's two kinds of people that Robert attracts. Some are people that are attracted to the philosophy of Jnana Yoga or Jnana Marga. Jnana is knowledge, and these are the people that can do things like inquire who is this I am and use your mind to analyze your mind, and that's sort of an intellectuals type approach. And the other people that are very prevalent are the people who follow Bhakti Yoga, which is the path of devotion. And these people, through devotion to the God of their choice, and through total surrender to the God of their choice. And this means surrendering, your will and everything about you, you're no longer taking any concern for where you live or what you eat, doing like Jesus said, take no thought for what you shall eat or what you shall drink or where you shall live or what you'll be clothed with, but surrendering to the God and surrendering to God's will and surrendering to the idea that what I'm experiencing is God's will, since God is omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent, and just turning the whole thing over and adoring, worshiping, loving this God. And see, this takes the type of a person who is naturally, loving type person, a person that likes to worship and love gods and things like that. So there's this path, and to those people he suggests total surrender. And you see, if you surrender completely, you're withdrawing all of your energy from the personal sense, the personal I, which is just a sense, which requires your thinking about it to sustain it. So by withdrawing all your energy from that, which is the result of devoting all your energy to worshiping this God and surrendering to it, you arrive at the same place. You discover that when your personal I is gone, then there's only the real I am, and you discover that your personal I am is really the I am, and you've just had a case of misidentification, and that's exactly the place that the analysis of who is this personal I, who is it that thinks, who is it that this, when that's gone, then all there is still there's I am, but it's not the personal I am. So both of them lead to exactly the same place. The goal is to discover what I am is. We all have an I am, and we all have misassociated it with our body mind. So either of those techniques, or either of the three actually, lead you in the right direction. This Argadata is also very strong on saying that you start with the concept of I am and analyze I am and observe the I am and watch I am and do all this. And he's real clear that it doesn't much matter how you go about doing that, as long as you have earnestness about it, it will unfold for you, because the real I am is the only thing that's real about us. And if we are seeking to discover who I am is, it is the real I am within us that is seeking, that is driving, that is producing that impetus to discover who I am is. And so the fact that you are on the path and consciously on the path and striving, earnest about it, and available to it, even ensures that the result happens.
So it's not just a matter of anything, it's just a matter of doing it the right way. It's a matter of just keep doing it, and whatever way.
It's mostly a matter of doing it, of just doing it, and doing it the way that feels right to you in this moment is the right way to do it. And that may be different tomorrow. I mean, self-inquiry may be really great today, and tomorrow self-inquiry could be just something you just can't do, and you might want to just get quiet and do the I am meditation or whatever. So, yeah. Sometimes, some people are more Jnana Yoga oriented, some people are more Bhakti Yoga oriented, and some people are more Karma Yoga oriented, and some people are more Raja Yoga oriented. But all of us have all of those within us. The devotional people also have a piece in them that wants to figure it out, and the intellectual people, the knowledge type people, also have a part in them that wants to love, so that all these aspects are there, and different ones are in ascendancy at different times. So what feels right is probably a real good direction, and far better than any direction anybody else can give you, since it's a thing of the moment. It's not a conflict at all to be a person who's very much on the Jnana Yoga path, and that same person be rapturously in love with the Guru. Those two things can coexist with no problem at all. I've experienced that with both Robert and with Rajneesh. My nature is Jnana Yoga, but that doesn't preclude rapturous love and devotion.
Just in talking about what you're just mentioning, it brought up something that I've been thinking about. I was in Tibet a couple years ago, and there's quite a few monks that were walking around with beads. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what they were saying, but they seemed to be chanting something. And it reminded me of saying the rosary, being Catholic, raised Catholic, and I'm still quite comfortable saying the rosary. I find myself falling into it every once in a while when I meditate. I just seem to do it, and it feels right, even though there's part of me thinking, okay, I'm thinking, I shouldn't be thinking. I'm starting to get into the I guess it's not so much the rightness of it as much as just looking towards that searching and experiencing God. it's funny, when you brought up this, it reminded me of the times that I start saying the rosary,
Sure.
and there's nothing.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's
Yeah.
like mantras, saying a mantra over and over again. If we are scattered,
Yeah.
then we will not be able to practice self-inquiry or do the I am meditation, although that's not much different from a mantra, or be able to do surrender if we're scattered and thinking about stuff. And so there's a bunch of techniques, a bunch of spiritual practices that relate to that. Chanting, group chanting is one. Saying mantras is another one, and what those people are doing is reciting their chant. They're probably doing the par whatever it is sutra that they recite so much in Tibet, reciting sutras over and over. And the idea, or one of the ideas behind that, is that if you're reciting a sutra or reciting or following a chant or something like that, it requires your attention. And being attentive brings your mind to one point. And then from one point, self-inquiry is to take a one-pointed mind, focused on self-inquiry, to a no-pointed mind. Okay? But before you can get to no mind, you've got to get to one point. So all the beads and sutras and chants and reciting the name of God is another one, and in India, lots of different ways of reciting the 10,000 names that God has in India, or your particular God. There's lots and lots of techniques like that. And the purpose of all of that is to get one-pointed as the necessary step to getting zero-pointed.
I noticed it helps me occasionally. When I get a scanner, I start saying the rosary, and all of a sudden I find myself just focusing, and then it leads me into just...
Sure, the serenity prayer uses a mantra will work too.
Right.
The other thing, though, is that, like all those monks are reciting the same 4 lines out of this Buddha Sutra, probably. Okay? And so there's 10,000 of them saying it all day long, every day. And there have been 10,000 people saying it all day long, every day for 10 centuries, or 20 centuries, or 25 centuries, So there's a little bit of energy worked up here. So latching into those words will have a lot more, potentially have a lot more effect than making up your own mantra. Okay?
Of course, I get a little too caught up in doing it right and wrong, and that's where I'm going off in the wrong direction. Good. Often thought.
No, there's a pretty good investment in the rosary.
Yeah.
Because
it does bring the calmness to me. That can be just, training and being in the body, but it does do something for me.
Sure. There's only the one consciousness, and the consciousness has had the experience of being calm saying the rosary. The consciousness has had much more of an experience of being calm and focused by saying that particular piece of the Buddha Sutra, but, they all work.
But I did have someone tell me one time ago that that was a form of meditation for them, and that's why it was comfortable for me.
Eventually, in order to find out who you really are, you need to be not thinking anything.
Right.
But from scattered mind to focused mind is a hell of a good first step.
Right, but that's how I felt it, because I started to think, I kept trying to get to nothing, and I couldn't get there.
Get to one
Just seemed to help me get.
And that's why the I am meditation. We have 3 other nights to meditate. This is a good time to ask questions and talk about what's going on.
Is there an explanation for deja vu?
It's a glitch in the matrix.
I don't have any experience with the explanation for deja vu.
Is that a joke? A glitch in the matrix?
Yeah, it's when they rearrange something.
It has nothing to do with reincarnation. Does the philosophy believe, or is there a relationship in the philosophy to reincarnation? Because I heard that before, that deja vu is connected to reincarnation.
Well, I suppose that it's possible that you could recognize a scene that you saw in a previous life. That would be one explanation for deja vu, but people also have deja vu sometimes about something that they haven't experienced before and discover it subsequently, even reverse deja vu, I guess it is. It's all in the mind. Reincarnation is all in the mind. That's all part of the Maya. It's all part of the myth. I mean, if you have a body, then there's karma, and then there's reincarnation, and then there's all those things. But
well, the whole experience of discovering who you are, that consciousness idea, and when this dream state, or when you come out of this dream, is it one continuous dream, or do you have to kind of learn? Because I'm thinking death again, going back to death, and people around me, family, whatever. Eventually, people die. But again, we talked about it being illusion in a way because it doesn't exist. But if you don't do the work or have in this lifetime, as I know it, the process of discovery, when does it end? This consciousness or this idea or this body as I know it, well, I don't know because I haven't lived hereafter as far as I know. Somewhere beyond, and I don't know if I'm making any sense, but...
Sure, I understand what you're saying. Reincarnation is part of the story. The story, the dream story, this long dream, includes reincarnation, includes the idea of a soul taking a different body and learning spiritual lessons, and it includes the idea of it being a spiritual gymnasium. All the Eastern religions have this belief, that you're on the karmic wheel and you have your experiences and you die and you come back and have other experiences, and until eventually we become consciously on the path and aware that we're doing this. But see, all of that is part of the dream. And all of that is this personal sense of, it's this personal sense of I that's taking on these different bodies, so to speak. And it's all part of the dream. And the one you are is constant and unchanging across all of that. So if in any lifetime you had discovered who you really are, it would be the same answer. Okay? And also if the person next to you at the same time discovered who they really are, it would still be the same answer. The one who is expressed as all of this. I was thinking the other day, if you look at I am, right now you have a sense of I am. But you had a sense of I am 10 years ago. You had a sense of I am when you were in high school. You had a sense of I am when you were in elementary school. if you think about it, and that's what I was doing, if you think about different periods in your life, there's an experience of I am there, okay? And that I am, in my experience, in all those ages, I can go back and look at all those ages and all those different situations, that I am that was there at that time was exactly the same. Okay? Now, the body that it was different. It was young now and older and that and changing. But the sense of I am, the awareness of I am, the consciousness of I am, was absolutely constant through all of that. Today this body is 62. And the I am doesn't feel any older or younger than the I am when I got out of college or when I went into elementary school. There's no sense of age within me attached to the I am. The age is attached to the body. Okay? Now, that I am is the one that's external to the mind and body. In fact, the mind and the body are within the consciousness that I am represents. And that I am is the one that was constant across lifetimes as well. Does that make any sense to you?
Well, I think I don't know, it's really rather abstract, but I think I understand. It's just hard for me, I suppose, to separate, I guess, that whole idea of this is not reality. I guess that whole idea of living between two worlds, maybe that's an aspect of it, where intellectually I can understand, I think, what you're saying, but it's like I don't feel it.
Or you don't recognize that you feel it.
And I think about, sometimes I think about the experience. My mother was a very spiritual person. And I think probably one person closer, really truly closer to God than most people that I've known in my life. And she died 2 years ago, and I was there for her death, and the whole death experience was rather interesting because she was talking, and it was almost like if she was talking to somebody outside of this realm, or maybe that's, with my own, that's the only way I can put it. And a certain amount of comfort. I could tell that it was being like questioned or something. That's the only way I can relate to it or think about it. And I had this idea of her actually maybe connecting with God and putting this idea of, did she reach that point? Did she reach the point at her death where she had a revelation? And it's just kind of a wonderment.
It is indeed.
Thinking about putting myself outside, someplace outside of this which seems so tangible, so real, and then putting that slant on it that it's almost a dream, it doesn't really exist.
See, you can't, you're not going to talk yourself out of believing in the dream, okay? because the one who's trying to talk yourself out of believing in the dream is part of the dream. All right? So the idea of worrying about whether this is a dream or not, or talking yourself out of it, or trying to accomplish that, or trying to have that realization or anything like that is actually counterproductive, because it's the one you need to drop who's trying to do all that. And questioning whether this is real or not, as we said last week, it's as real as anything in the universe. It's not real in the sense that we think it's real. And by that I mean it's not real in the sense that it does not have an independent external material existence outside of my own mind. All right? So it's in that sense that it's not real. But the way you're going to discover who you really are is not by trying to be someone different, but by examining who you really are. Going into this laboratory, which is the only laboratory there is, and seeing who is there. Seeing if they're, seeing if there's is there a you separate from your body and mind? Ask the questions. Could you have a body and mind and not be conscious of it? No. At least if you did, you'd never know it. So we have to conclude that our body and our mind is within our consciousness, which is already radically opposed to the conditioning that we get as human beings, which is that our consciousness somehow lurks inside our brain, inside our body. But any sort of clear reflection on that will indicate that your body and your mind must be in your consciousness, or you wouldn't be conscious of them. And then you begin to wonder about the fact that we talk about my mind and my body. Whose mind and whose body? Is it the body's mind and the mind's body? That doesn't work. Whose mind is it? Whose body is it? We already know that it's my mind and my body, so there's an I that's not my body and my mind. And this kind of inquiry begins to give us some insight into it. There is not only the body and the mind and the one who claims the body and mind, but there's the one who's witnessing this whole process. There's a witness who is aware that she has a body and that she has a mind, and that she's not the body and mind because she's asking about it, or she claims them as her own, and there's a witness who's the witness of the fact that she's conscious of having a body and a mind. And who is this witness? And where is the witness in this hierarchy? You see what I'm saying? This kind of inquiry begins very quickly to erode the conditioned concepts that the human consciousness would have us believe. It's just a conditioning, and any almost casual examination will begin to undermine that. You can go from the physical side and prove very clearly using material physics that there is nothing here. There is no such thing as matter. Matter is energy. In fact, there's no experiment that you can describe that would prove that you are here. Okay? There's no way. If something that your body is real and something that your mind is real, there's still absolutely no way that you can prove that there's anything outside there. Because the only way that you know there's something outside there is you have this let's limit ourselves to one sense, but I see it, you say. But what do I see? I see, according to the story, now this is the material story, light waves bounce off the orchid, they hit my eye, they strike the retina, there's a biomechanical process that converts them into electrical impulses on a nerve, and then it goes up into the brain, and they rattle around in my brain. And so the experience that I have is electrical impulses scrambling around inside the brain. Where does the picture of orchid come from? Who saw the orchid? Since the brain is all the brain has ever encountered is electrical impulses running around it. How could it possibly have a sense of orchid or carmine or yellow or anything like that? And on the other hand, I'll point out that I can see that just as clearly in the middle of a dream tonight. So I demonstrate over and over every day that my brain is perfectly capable of creating and manifesting this sort of stuff. It does it at nighttime. It creates universes when I dream. So I defy you to tell me an experiment that you can run that will prove that there is anything external to you. Okay? It must be in your consciousness. And the fact that those little electrical impulses can get converted into orchid means that there's a consciousness that knows about electrical impulses and about orchid. So, there's just 100 ways. It's the most amazing thing to me in the world that 6 billion people are so firmly entrenched in the belief that they're this material body that has an external independent existence along with all this other stuff, and yet any examination at all at the material level makes that highly questionable. So it's a process. And as we become less and less attached to the body and mind, things get quieter. Primarily as we get less attached to the mind, as we stop listening to the mind.
I have a question just for the sake of passing time.
It's passing. What are we talking about?
Is it possible to have a non-ego-driven conversation? Now, let me give you a little.
Hey, friend called me at the time. Rhetorical, hi, how are you? I'm just finding I just feel like I have a lot less to say. I think over the last few years I can observe when I'm doing this or this is what's going on, and if that's not who I am, I don't need the ego's validation of guess what, I make this much money or whatever. It just seems like there's a lot less to talk about.
That's right.
So I was just trying to, when I was talking to it, I observed that anything I can say that's not ego-driven. I mean, I wasn't talking to this person about it.
Sure.
But it's kind of like, no. I'm engaged. I have to say something about I.
There is nothing that you can say if you initiate it. Robert has no ego. Zero ego. And yet he talks. But the fact is that he doesn't talk. Words come out of the body in response to questions people ask. Okay, so there's a real clear case of what we would call talking without an ego being involved.
Right.
But if you're initiating it, then there's probably an ego involved. The Sufis say that there should be 3 tests on what you say. One is it true? If it's not true, don't say it. And the second one is it harmful? Did it hurt? If it hurts or harmful, don't say it. And the third one is it necessary? which sort of cuts to the chase. So that will certainly throw out 98% of what you say. I tried that once, and I was in India at the Rhodesia's commune, and I was doing the group, and then they suggested that we do that, and it took me about half an hour, and I finally got a sign and said, "In silence," and hung it around my neck, just so that nobody would even talk to me, but yeah, there was nothing to be said.
Well, how do you, let me just ask a question for the sake of asking it. What's the difference between shutting down? Well, see, what I'm talking about, you see, so extroverted, right? Mm-hmm. Bouncing off the walls, have to be center of attention. And like when I was talking to this person, I felt a little lost. I just didn't feel that need to engage. I'm losing that. I'm not trying to be more spiritual, less egotistical. It's just not anything to say. And I'm sure it's specific to what I'm feeling, but is that growth or being healthy, or is that shutting out and shutting off? Or how can you kind of...
Well, the motive is what matters. I mean, certainly stopping all sorts of idle chatter and self-serving chatter, forget the three Sufi maxim, try to not say things which cannot be construed as self-serving. Okay? That throws out a whole lot again, so the question is what's your motive there? I mean, if you're not talking because there's no reason to talk, that's probably spiritual growth. You're no longer following the chatter, and you no longer feel the need to assert your ego, and it's not resistance behavior anymore. You don't need to let people see, here I am, here I am, here I am. So that certainly would be a sign of spiritual growth. If, on the other hand, your resistance behavior is to not talk, then that's shutting down. We use different words for the same thing. I live here. I have 3 bedrooms and 3 baths, and I live alone. Am I isolating? Yeah, that was motive, right? No, I'm not isolated. I'm joyful here. I'm joyous here. I'm not shut down. I'm not isolated. I'm not anything. I'm joyous here. But a lot of people that had a house like this and lived alone would be, there could be 100 reasons why they're doing it that are, isolating or unwilling to make the investment in getting along with people, or 100 reasons. So it's always in the why you're doing it.
Yeah, I think I just became my worst nightmare. When I first got involved in AA and everything else, I just thought, my thoughts were these people are pricks. And I was never going to not just hang out with AA people. I think I'm just feeling torn because I'm more comfortable in this environment than I am not in it. And I'm aware of that. And, then the thoughts of my friends are less. The way we communicate is different.
Sure, yeah. Well, as you grow spiritually, people keep up with you or they don't. And the people who are consistent with your current level of spiritual understanding, the axiom in the workshops is always, that your experience is the manifestation of the content of your consciousness. So as your consciousness becomes clearer and grows, so to speak, then the people who are not keeping up with you and who are not consistent with that have to disappear out of your experience. And new people will come in.
Right.
And usually the experience is that lots go and a few come. But the few are solid gold.
Right.
As compared to a lot of iron that left. So that's usually the way it looks. And that's why we have this kind of community here, is because as people start dropping out of your life, why there are people here who are doing the work, probably consistent with you, what you're doing, and so you don't have to isolate.
When I meditate in the morning, I always start with I am with God, and then I am with someone. It's usually someone that I know is maybe having a health problem or just someone I love or a friend. Currently, my sister is undergoing chemo, so she's there. And it's always my son who died 4.5 years ago. And I use it's kind of a mantra that leads into being quiet. But sometimes it also, particularly with my son, sometimes I feel more of it's a connection, a means of connection. And I guess there's no question there. I'm just wondering what's going on, or if that is whatever.
Yeah, there's no way I can know. It certainly is possible that there's a real connection there. There's no.
Well, I don't want to say cure my sister, because I don't think that's possible. But as a means of connecting, maybe dragging her into a connection with God through that kind of mantra. Is that useful, or is there any power to that, or?
It's like we could talk a little bit about spiritual healing.
I don't mean to be doing that, but.
No, but there is no such thing either, because there's nobody that needs it. And spiritual healing is, in fact, recognizing that there's no one who needs healing. My point is that by recognizing my oneness with God, I am recognizing everybody's oneness with God. Okay? And if that's not a connection, I don't know what it would be, and how we're all one, right? Now, depending on where they're at or not, they may or may not have an experience behind that, which is immaterial, since they don't need it anyway, because they're one with God, so there's nothing amiss. But that's.
Sometimes it is only a mantra, because there is no other, it just gets me quiet.
And that's fine too, if you go into the silence, but for years I started my meditations with peace be still and know that I am God, and know that I am here. And then it started going longer and longer, know that I am here, and know that I am all that is here. I'm the only one here, and that leads into the sense of oneness, the experience of the presence of God. And when you're experiencing the presence of God, oneness with God, that's the whole story. Your sister and your son are also one with God, therefore one with you, therefore part of the one, and anything's possible, So I would say it's as reasonable for you.
Not hurting anything anyway.
No, but throwing that into consciousness, if they're attuned to you, it is healing. It is a healing thing, because that's a truth. The reality is oneness with God, and oneness with God has no problems. Okay, and that may manifest in a particular physical incarnation as a healing. Or not, but that's not the purpose. The purpose is knowing the truth, and I'm just saying that it's as reasonable that you would experience oneness with her as with your son. Doesn't matter.
Or even just feel
Doesn't matter whether she's wearing a body and he isn't, or vice versa. That's immaterial. Neither one ever was really. Yeah, anything that reaches towards the experience of the presence of God or oneness with God is a wonderful thing. And anything that leads to silence is a wonderful thing, because if you're in the complete silence, here it is. Yeah, that also is the experience of the presence of God. The silence is immediately will reveal that to you.
My head spins in a circle between there's no one to heal, there's no one to ask for the healing, there's only the silence, only the listening. And my head just sort of chases its tail.
Well, that's all true. There's nothing to chase there. That's just truth.
Does that contradict itself to you?
Not intellectually, but the I, the small I, is here and in the illusion.
Mm-hmm.
Wondering who's here and in the illusion.
That doesn't hear.
Yeah.
Don't be yourself, look at yourself.
Yeah, the small I is certainly doing that, but so?
And sometimes it keeps me from, let's say, he would say, why ask for my sister to be healed? I don't think that could be done. Or, my wrist hurts. But there's something that stops me for asking from that help, because when I listen to Robert, or even when we all speak, it's like we have this body, sort of, and it doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether there's a healing or not, because it's all part of the dream. It really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, you're all very consistent.
I'm sitting here listening.
Yeah, and there's a monkey in the tree back here yammering away about, this is insane or whatever the hell the monkey's saying, but, it's all perfectly consistent. It doesn't matter. It makes no difference. There's nobody that was ever sick. There's nobody that ever died. There's nobody that ever was. Nobody's healthy. Nobody's sick. Nobody died. None of that. That's all part of the story. And if, when you're in that consciousness, it's clean, blissful. And even when you're in that consciousness, there may be a monkey in the tree back there chattering and chatting away, but that's all right. Let the monkey chatter. We have a problem in the Western society because, we think that's us. Over here, it's my committee. We share in all the AA meetings, I got my committee. In the East, they talk about the monkeys chattering in the trees. Okay, now how's that for a distancing from it? They're talking about the same thing. The monkeys chattering in the trees or my committee meeting at 4 o'clock in the morning. Which do you prefer, Which the monkeys chattering in the trees, and you're sitting here and you're meditating or you're reciting your mantra or something, and there's a monkey up there chattering, and the silence includes the monkey, and what's the big deal,
Next week, we're going
That's helpful. The monkey chattering in the tree is included in the silence.
Yeah, that's all just in silence. Friday night was a wonderful meditation here for some of us, and for others I expect it was very difficult. So we were sitting here meditating about 20 after. Were you guys here? Yeah. And this truck, it's about half as long as that block. Big ass moving van comes down here and tries to turn. And of course, and his tail end's practically at the coffee shop, so he's up on the sidewalk and he's smashing a little SUV into the side, and he gets himself into a line where he can't get out. It's about 20 after 7 that this starts, and he's still there with his engine idling at 8, and he killed the engine 2 or 3 times and restarted it and tried this, and somebody said, stop, and fuck, and this went for 40 minutes out of the 60, I'm sure. And I was sitting over there, and I'm listening to that, and I immediately noticed the silence behind it and all around it, and it's just sitting there watching that. It's no different than the wind chime. What's the difference between that and the wind chime? And the mind saying, what's the difference between the truck and the wind chime? All of that was just part of the silence, and it was sort of neat, except that the gift was that it focused me. Okay? So I was wondering, for the other people, either you could be caught up in the truck and not meditate, or you could use it as a great device to focus on seeing the truck and all of this as part of the silence, because the silence isn't lack of noise, the silence is lack of self. Okay, so if you just wrap up all of that and put the monkeys in there too, it's all within the silence. And that silence, now, who's experiencing that silence? Okay? Now we're getting closer to I am. Who's experiencing the silence?
Now, for most of us, getting close is probably as far as you get. I don't mean most of us in here, but I think generally people.
Getting close to what?
I am.
All of us are always eternally, infinitely immersed in it.
Well, my little school grade kid, he wants to get grades here. I mean, when you say we're trying to find out, is there ever a finding out? I mean, certain individuals do, or most people don't, or
Everybody will.
okay. But they don't always like it.
One lifetime or another.
Okay.
Everybody will.
Everybody will what?
Get quiet.
Get quiet, I'll tell you.
Already went through that.
Everybody will get quiet and find out who they really are and laugh at the joke. If they thought they were that funny.
So how can we possibly, I am, experience loss of self?
Can't.
Right. So
But you can experience loss of personal self.
you can, the little I can grow closer to the silence and the loss of self because self exists for the little I. It's just like God experiencing God, which can't happen, or God nurturing God, if God does not exist, such as love and hate, opposites. I was talking about this a while ago. When I'm nurturing my plants, then that would be my little I nurturing the plant, which is God. Or it could be my body is just watering a plant. That's what it is. But I am is not part of that. So it's really not God nurturing God. It's just a concept or a context.
I don't know how you would say I am is not a part of that.
Because it's kind of like,
So the plant is getting watered,
right,
and the body is apparently watering the plant,
right.
and the little I maybe,
But I am is just all of it.
and the little I may be thinking he's doing that or not,
Who's dreaming it?
which is irrelevant.
Right.
But the individualization of consciousness, the consciousness, I'm just asking how you're using the word I am. 'Cause capital I, capital A-M, I am that, I am that I am. That I am certainly can experience the
See, that,
personal self being gone.
it's not the capital I, capital A-M, it's the word experience. Because who's experiencing the silence
Well,
would be the little I. I am is silence.
now, the little I can't experience the silence because if little I is there, there's no silence.
Or you're saying get closer to the silence because you're saying,
There is silence, and in the silence, there is no little I.
right,
And there is an experience of that. It's just not a personal
but
experience.
who is experiencing?
It's not a personal
That was the
experience.
question.
Yeah, it's not a personal experience.
That was the question that you said, who is experiencing
Right,
that silence?
that's what I'm asking. Who experiences the silence?
Right, and that's what.
And see, that's all the way up that the consciousness is conscious. The one consciousness is conscious of that.
Right.
How can you say whether I am is or isn't experiencing anything?
If it's loss of self, little I doesn't exist.
I don't understand that part. It says I am. You said I am.
You experience the silence. I mean, See, the language doesn't allow it. Let me say it that way. If you've experienced silence, it's not the small sense, it's not Billy that experienced it.
Yeah.
And yet there was the experience of silence.
It is a language.
Well, language doesn't hold up. I mean,
When it falls apart,
I presume Sanskrit is better, but English certainly doesn't deal with this.
Joel uses a lot of quotes from the New Testament, I guess even the Old Testament, but there's one that maybe I've imagined it because I haven't looked it up, but it goes something like, unless you are lost, you shall never be found. And I was wondering if that ever was heard, or it's just in my imagination, if that's part of how what we're talking about gets talked about.
Sure, that sounds like something Jesus might have said.
sounds like more prodigal son.
But, it's losing personal self in order to find who you really are. Losing little I in order to find big I is what all of that, all of those apparent paradoxes usually boil down to the use of little I and big I. Got to die before you can live. Means you got to die of personal sense before you can experience your reality. And, a lot of things that are said like that.
Gotta get drunk in order to get sober.
Slightly different, but true.
That's my favorite.
So it's like the ego dies.
Yeah.
Unless the ego dies, you can never be born.
Yeah, unless you lose the ego, you can't find yourself. It's always the fact that I is dual.
You can't lose your ego as your personal I, right? The little I. Because the more you try to lose your ego, you're reinforcing
Yeah,
the
you
ego
can,
itself.
but you can withdraw energy from it.
Right.
The secret of getting rid of mind and getting rid of ego and getting rid of all of that is to withdraw your energy. And it takes your regularly applied energy to sustain the illusion of the continuity of this I thought. Little I is just a thought, like no other thought, like any other thought. And the fact that we think about little I so much creates the illusion of a continuity and a being that has existed rather than discrete appearances of the I thought amongst appearances of world thought and car thought and girl thought and sun thought and stuff like that. If you withdraw energy from that, the illusion will shatter. But the problem with withdrawing energy from that is before you can withdraw energy from it, you've got to be uninvested. And that means you've got to make a lot of progress towards getting rid of desires and fears and hates and worries and loves and all the stuff that keeps you invested, which keeps you chained to a lie. If you're worried about how it's going to come out, it's not going to. That's the rub. If you're worried about how it's going to come out, if you have a plan, you're stuck.
Well, I experienced that when you used about making a list, a full list.
Yeah, sure. That's what.
My whatever little I is kind of like, well, but what are we going to get to doing all that?
Yeah, sure. That's what the.
I have no interest in that. What's behind not having all that.
Yeah.
I guess
I forgot about that.
That's right. And that keeps you. Those lists are the list of things that are keeping you invested in the lie.
Right.
Go the lie, go.
There's no trophies for being desirelessness, I love all those things. They have such wonderful kicks. Don't desire desirelessness.
I was standing on your hat.
I love
Rajneesh Denise used to say, how will I stop my mind? With my mind means roar with laughter.
Or you realize there's nothing to realize.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
I was talking with Greg, and he said, maybe you're just at another level. But then I was listening to Joe.
Who was it? Sorry, said?
Not Joel. I don't think I want to listen to Joel anymore, but I was listening to Robert. And so my experiences, like what I was just doing within this past hour, I was like, oh yes, I remember that. And I was back. And what Robert says is, if you stop, I don't want to say it verbatim, but if you stop doing what you're doing, then you have to do it over again. But then, I was talking with someone that's like, well, you just might be at another level. So, I guess it doesn't really matter whether I'm at another level or whether I'm starting over again. All I know is it sucks. And I know that there's peace. And that I'm in the peace right now. I just think the peace sucks. Whatever. What's supposed to come out that way?
Well, how was it supposed to come out?
I know that in the moment there's peace.
Mm-hmm.
And really it hasn't been sucky, but probably the past couple of years it has been a lot more just sitting there waiting. I've just been like when I got let go from my job recently. No, I'm not even going to look for a job.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, I'm going to sit in my house and wait for something to happen. And that's what I've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been times when I've been sitting on my couch just going, this is it. This is what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And and then I'll have once in a while, this requires no thought or anything, but I'm not even having to go through that because I'm not really thinking. So then I'm like, before I was doing all this stuff, to find a peace, and now it's just kind of there.
Mm-hmm.
And, but I don't have that refreshing drink of water like I used to. And so they're saying, well, you're just maybe, there's levels and levels and levels. Like, after 10 years, I'm sure there'll be other levels before I go in this. And like I said, my meditations used to have shapes. And then you're saying meditation, sometimes the monkey's in the meditation. I used to come in here and fall asleep and snore during the meditation. And some other lady used to always she used to make all these noises. I guess it was like some yoga noise thing she was doing. And I don't know if you remember that. I was like, lady, what? No, I didn't really. Yeah, I did it first. Because I thought, it made me think, what the hell's going on here? Then when I realized what she was doing, that didn't bother me. So, I don't know, it's just like going through all these different experiences in meditation and in consciousness and in little I. It just seems that it's kind of pointless to even discuss it at times. Mm-hmm. That's like sometimes when I come in here, it's like there's nothing to say. I look at Anne all day long. I just look at her and I'm like, I'm going to goof a little bit, but there's really not much to say because it's just having no purpose.
I'm just aware of that. As you're talking, Billy said it, there's a lot less to say. And, talking to family members, it's weird. It's like I'm so much less attached to the stuff that goes on with them, and it's kind of like I'm watching the interactions. But it feels like, okay, in this story, okay, this is like, these are the members of the family, or the blood family, but it just feels so removed. They're like it's like a stranger, like there's hardly any connection with these people anymore. Mm-hmm. And I don't
from what I hear in here, I don't, I can't get quiet and experience silence like willingly by myself when I come here and when I get to the group. But what I notice is here I will, but it's quieter. That's about all. It's a whole lot quieter. But in my meditation, it's the monkey's constant.
Mm-hmm.
But there seems to be less need to speak up and less to talk about. And it's generally quieter. But it feels like there's this yearning for like what I hear, this silence, this at-will silence that you can just drop into and just hang with. It's like I think I'm still at that stage of desiring to experience the silence, which...
Yeah, and that's fine. Yeah, everybody's there.
Yeah.
Everybody's there at one time or another. So, watch it.
Yeah.
Let the thoughts thought, let the thoughts think, and let the silence be what it is.
Well, there's a real kid part of me, I think, that thinks that that's a pathetic way to exist.
Yeah.
Yet I continue to do it, and it feeds me. And then I think
It feeds you.
And then I get the thought, this is fucking pathetic. It's just kind of hanging out. Okay.
Yeah,
So there's judgment going on too.
Oh, sure, good judgment. And there's often a grieving as parts of humanhood are dropped.
I did those lists, and I thought, it was like, oh, you mean I can't even chase that?
Doesn't say anything about chasing it, it's just don't be invested in it.
Because yesterday was Mother's Day, obviously, really, or was it Sunday? Sunday. And Robert had one of his talks talking about, you want to know why you're not conscious because you're attached to Mother's Day.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I remember that.
So, 4:30-year-old around, I still haven't been over to my mother's house. And I just called her up so I wasn't coming over. Am I a dutiful son? No. I mean, I'm a flaky son at best. And it just felt okay not to make the lie of running over there to satisfy my ego of being a dutiful son. And there was this kind of afterwards, this kind of emptiness, like, well, that sucks to lose that little dream of yourself.
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah.
I invest part of the list you're talking about. I invest a lot of that.
Excuse me for a minute. Yeah, we have a lot of fantasy, and it's never any fun to drop a fantasy. I think that's that.
Page 17. See, there's line in the big book that's been hidden me with all these silences. And it says, there is a vast amount of fun about it all, but underneath there's this deadly earnestness. And so in the meetings, if everyone, in AA meetings, it's when someone starts talking about that deadly earnestness, the whole room gets quiet. It's like God appears, and God's always there, but it's just really present. And then there's other times when people are talking about joy, like some guy was sharing about, my little sister came in town, and then he had that little choke, and like the whole room goes silent, and it's just the deadly earnestness of the reality of we are not in control. I mean, it's really been present in my journey recently.
Yeah, the deal is, as long as you're enjoying these things, enjoy them. There's nothing wrong with enjoying them. If you, as you become aware that the fact that you can enjoy something includes with it the potential for the unhappiness when it's taken from you, or it goes away, or it dies, or whatever. And as you become aware that everything changes, and as you become you will eventually become aware that it is the nature of humanhood to have happiness replaced by sadness, replaced by happiness, replaced by despair, and these things go back and forth, and for most people it appears that the unhappiness far outweighs the happiness, and when you get tired of all of that, then usually we're driven to this kind of work. And on the other hand, as you have more and more of experience of the silence, of that aspect of the presence of God, and you start getting nurtured there, you find this thing growing which doesn't have a downside. Okay? And so you make the transition. But, as long as it's working for you over here, you're going to stay over there. None of us are dumb. If it's working, what's wrong with that? But it won't work forever.
Can I ask you something? This is probably more along the lines of advice. I'm still fairly green to live between two worlds. And a close family friend died the other day.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm struggling. There's a service coming up that I'm going to go to. And I'm really struggling on, I'm not sure what I'm struggling with. I guess what to say to my brother. He's one of my brother's best friends. And he's got his 6 kids. He's 40 years old and he's leaving behind. And it's all very sad. And at the same time, it's like there's a part of me that keeps saying, no one died,
Well, you don't need to share that with them.
Yeah. Open mic for memorial service.
Yeah.
Nothing to feel.
It's very simple.
Yeah.
It's very simple. Go there and with compassion and be loving. And the people who are in tears, tell them how sorry you are. Yeah, because it's sad that they're in tears.
I mean, I still struggle because I do feel a certain sadness too.
Well, fine.
But there's another side that feels like a joy, like, he's happy.
He's finally free. Yeah, he's out of it. Thank God, he's out of it.
Exactly.
But, you go do the compassionate thing. Love the ones that need loving.
Right.
Nurture the ones that need nurturing. See, you're in a position that you can do that because you're not sucked into the whole game. So you can go there and you can be compassionate to the ones that need it and hold hands and tell the people that are really sad that you're sorry too and be with them. And if anybody wants to hear that nobody died, they'll ask you. And they may. There may be somebody there who needs to be told that, and they'll ask you, and it'll come out of you. But you don't go there with a plan. Just go there with a.
Because my ego was getting out of control I shouldn't be out of control, but I had these thoughts like, because she's been sick for a little while, and I remember hearing other people talking about spiritual healing, and I thought, well, you just need to go there and tell them that he's not sick. And so we call it, I keep having this thought, and I'm like, wait, I have nothing to do with it,
Yeah, well, just go there and go there with the intent to be compassionate and loving and nurturing, and you will be. And it'll be a good experience for you and for them.
Thank you.
I wonder, where the hell did she get that? Just because you were yourself.
When you talk about things being pulled out of you, I had an experience with that the other day where, because I had the experience of talking with people and thinking they need to hear some truth. And I should enlighten them. It was very different than that. It was a woman who was at one of my food addict meetings, and she called me to left a message on my machine, and I called her back, and we started to talk, and I can't even remember what I said to her. But at one point she said, "Where do you get this stuff?" "No, really, now where? Now, do you go to classes? Do you?" And I said, "Well, yeah." And it was just, she was dragging it. And she said, Do you follow something? Do you read something? Who do you read? Tell me who it is." And it was my first experience with someone just like, and I talked about Joel. And she said, "Name the book." "Okay, what do I say? I'm going out tomorrow." And she made me name books, Joel goes, and And she said, this is great, this is great. Can I get into these classes? Where are they?
She's ready.
And this is the part, I would never pick her as I had no idea. Totally unexpected.
Yeah. Trust me, she's ready. She's telling you she's ready.
It was ripped out.
She feels the God in you, and the God in her feels the God in you, and wants some of that. Let's go get that.
So obviously the other times where I felt like it was slightly drawn out of me were quite not, because the comparison was so dramatic.
Well, there are degrees, of course, but
Okay, well this was rupture.
yeah, yeah. She's ready. Good.
Amazing.
So tell her.
Yeah, I did.
Just don't initiate. You don't need to initiate spiritual.
In fact,
Right.
when she was asking me, I was being very guarded.
Yes, that's
Because
right.
I remember Joel saying something of like you read, like don't even tell them.
That's
So they're
secrecy.
really pulling it.
Yeah. You'd be reticent a little bit.
Yes,
Yeah, that's
that's
fine.
great. It's like, well, that was meant to be.
Yeah, if they're ready to hear it, they'll ask you. There's no question about that. You don't have to initiate.
Yeah.
You don't have to ever initiate anything.
I've never had specific statements like that. Like, are you going to some classes or workshops, and who are you reading, and what is his name?
Yeah. I think she wants what you have. I think she wants what you have.
And she had pitched in a meeting about, because I had been the speaker at the meeting on Saturday, and she had pitched about why all these people had, like, all she's ever gotten out of being clean with her food is just being clean with, like, it's over is all she gets. And she doesn't get to feel anything, and she thinks it's all, she has never experienced anything more beyond that. And she was all sad about that part. So some part of her is like, wants that more.
Sure, you bet. Yeah, that's the people that do this work. They get sober, they get clean, they have a way of living which maintains their sobriety or their abstinence or their whatever, and they are successfully staying clean and sober and abstinent, and they continue to be reasonably miserable because that's the human condition, and they say, is this all there is? And if they see somebody who has more, and if they are disgusted enough that they're looking, they'll find you. They'll come to you. And if they don't want to hear it.
I've been called unique my whole life, and I don't take it as I don't get emotional about it. I don't get offended or anything. But a lot of people recently have been going, well, Sean, you just like to put a twist on everything. I'm like, I'm just saying stuff, and I don't know how you're hearing it.
That's a twist.
And so I just look at them and I go, oh, okay. And one thing that you were saying to me, I said this morning, I said, I'm trying to get rid of the conditioning of the big book.
I'm sorry, the conditioning what?
The conditioning of the big book. And you said, well, the big book actually tore up the conditioning that you had before the big book. And so a lot of, when I do the work, the script work, like you're saying, well, you need to know what script it was. And even when we sat at Good Stuff that one day, I do this 4-step, I do the inventory of the 4-step, and then I write that down, and then I transfer that over to script. And like what I just did recently with my inventory work was I did the one where it's like I wanted my time to be worthy, and I wanted to be popular. And popular is accepted, which is I'll never be accepted. Worthy is valued, and I'll never be valued. And so then I listened to Robert, and he's saying, try not to do any writing. And I don't do much writing, or reading. But the writing is what takes away all that monkey stuff. And you never did writing.
No.
So, it kind of seems like these guys made their list of all their desires and everything. I totally forgot about it, number one, but
It wasn't an assignment. It was an opportunity.
It was an assignment for myself. So it was kind of a...
Do what you need to do.
Right.
I don't have any sense that anybody needs to do that. My only statement is if you want to know what's tying you to your humanhood, look at these 4 lists.
No, well, no, I was saying it was an assignment to myself.
Yeah.
That I said, well, I'm going to do that when I get home, and I probably went and got some tacos. It was Tuesday, but...
Yeah, first things first.
Yeah, right. So with the... With, right. Actually, I did do an inventory. I said tacos, and I forgot. But the thing is in my meditations, when they're noisy, I have to do that writing. And I shared this a while ago. I had a meditation where that monkey was just like, loud.
I mean, we hear Robert say something, and that's not an absolute for everybody everywhere. That's the right answer for the person who asked him that question in that moment.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Robert, I'm sure, is not against all writing. But Robert didn't write because he was struck enlightened when he was 14, so he didn't have to write. So,
Struck enlightened. That. I'm so, can I be struck? But then I'm desiring, so.
Right.
How do you get struck? How do you get struck enlightened?
it happens to very few people once in a while.
We'll have it in your next one.
Once you see power,
I'll never be struck.
go into the power.
Yeah.
I would say that is-
Struck enlightened.
I thought you said struck lightning.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what he did his previous 20 lifetimes, you know? I mean,
Maybe he was a homeless guy that couldn't.
14, man.
You know, that's reincarnation.
yeah, I know.
Right.
But isn't our ego attaching meaning to that? Like when she says that, my ego says, he's better than me, he's
Yeah.
14 and struck.
Yeah.
All of us could even get a spark somewhere.
It's gonna match sparking in yours.
My kid is about to win.
But you don't know which lifetime or anything at all, you know? I mean, it's just so silly. We have no idea what anybody's history is or our history or where we are or where we're going, and we're trying to milestone it.
Not everybody necessarily becomes masters or teachers either, though, do they? I mean, Robert was a master.
Everybody will become enlightened. Everybody will realize who they have always been, but not necessarily in this lifetime. But there's a progression.
I asked you a question one time. Do I have to live every single type of life before I'm enlightened? And you said, who cares? But I was thinking.
If you could answer that question, then you would have been done.
Right. Right.
I remember asking you a question one time, I can't remember what it was, and you said, how the hell do I know? And I was like, oh, why don't you do everything?
I think it's time to get quiet. We obviously lost it.
I think we found.
Okay, thanks for coming.